Hello, gentlemen, barbarians, savages, the rooster here. Today I'm going to talk to you about female nature. It's a pretty important subject, and I think every man should learn this over his lifetime, and helps to deal with women and wives and girlfriends and daughters, and it really helps in understanding. Over the centuries, the idea has been that women are this mystical, magical thing that no one can understand, but I think all men, by the time they get to about 35, they start to have some understanding of, why am I in these relationships, and I'm not doing anything wrong, but they continue to keep going wrong and stuff like that. And, the most important thing about this is for that 20-year-old out there who's just stepping out into life. I think the most value can be for them. I'm almost 50 now, and I wish I would have known this stuff in my 20s, because it would have changed the way I lived my life a lot. And I know a lot of guys that are watching this that are in their 50s and 60s are going, yeah, they're nodding their heads. They know what's coming. But anyways, this is about female nature. And female nature is not all that complicated. It really falls into three categories. And those three categories are this: hypergamy, Brifaults law, and something called solipsism. Okay? I'm going to say those again: hypergamy, Brifaults law, and solipsism. 95% of female behavior falls into those three categories. Now, each woman individually has different levels on the spectrum of each one of these items. Some are very, very high in hypergamy. Some have Brifaults law. They use Brifaults law exclusively. Some women are very solipsistic. So each individual woman has different spectrums of this, and you may be dating or married to one where you don't see a lot of this in them, but you'll definitely see at least two of these categories in every woman. So let's start off with hypergamy. Hypergamy is basically marrying up. It's a really big word for dating and marrying up. Women have always classically married up. They really, really, really hate to marry down. But the iconic definition of it is bonding with men of high utility for the purpose of resource extraction. And that's kind of vague, but you kind of get the idea. They're going to mate with you, they're going to marry you, they're going to date with you if you appear to have a high utility to them. Now, utility can be a lot of things. Classically, it's three areas: power, money, and resources. So if you have a nice car, that creates a status. Status is something that they look at. They're always looking for the bigger, better deal. And some people call it monkey branching, where they're holding on to this guy down here and they don't want to let go, but they're secretly dating their boss at work, and they're hoping, their boss will leave his wife so they can let go of this dude and they can monkey branch up to the next guy. And they'll keep doing that throughout their whole life. And you'll see this a lot. Women, sometimes women marry 4, 5, 6 times in a lifetime. Generally, men, after the second time, that second divorce hits them, they realize, there's no advantage in this to me. But The idea about hypergamy is it is it's been tried and tested. There was a guy named Lammy in 2012. He was a researcher over in Germany, and he took different men, all pretty good-looking men, and he placed them in 3 different types of cars. And it was a very simple test, and he asked them to ask women out and ask for their phone numbers. So he had a Maserati, he had a Mercedes-Benz, and he had a cheap Chevy Probe or something like that, right? So all the men had to do was ask for a phone number, right? Well, what are the results? The results. The men were successful 25.3% of the time, a fourth of the time, when women saw them in a high status car. So the Maserati. 1 in 4. I don't know about you, but my average is about 1 in 10. When I ask women out, it's, maybe 1 in 10. The medium status car, the Mercedes, 12.8%. And obviously the Chevy Probe, 7.8%. So it's obvious and clear that women monitor status. They monitor men's power, money, resources. And you have to be acutely aware of that fact. The math behind hypergamy, the bigger, better deal, if you want to think about it this way, all men in general, will date about 80% of the female population. The only women that men won't date are fatties and uggies, right? The bottom 20% of the gene pool, men won't date. But they'll date 3s. They'll date 4s, they'll date 5s, they'll date 6s. If you're a man, or if you're a woman and you're a 3, there's a man out there for you. So men will date 80% of women. Hypergamy is the fact that women are exactly the opposite. The average woman will only date the top 20% of men. Women want 8s, 9s, and 10s. That's it. You're a 7 on paper. Chances are you'll probably meet someone. It'll be a 4 or a 5 because she's looking at you as a 7. But what she really wants, even though she's dating you as a 7, she really wants an 8, 9, or 10. And that's what women call settling. I don't want to settle. Well, you're average. You're a 5. But you won't date a man that's a 5? No, you have to date a man that's an 8 or a 9. So that's hypergamy. That's the way really to think about hypergamy. So what's the solution to hypergamy? There really isn't one. There's nothing that you can do to change a woman's mind and the way that she thinks. The best way to short-circuit hypergamy is to be the best male that you can be. Be an alpha male. Make sure you work out. Make sure you keep track of your money. Make sure that you have some status symbols in your life that you can flaunt, peacocking or whatever it's called, to attract women. And it seems shallow and it seems stupid, but it works. And you might even find that the woman that you get with, you might not want her, because if you have to be that shallow to get her, chances are she's going to be pretty shallow too. So all you 20-year-olds, remember out there, if you just want to get laid, you're going to have to play the game. You're going to have to play the hypergamy game. And if you want to get married, you're going to have to maintain the hypergamy game. You're going to have to keep up with the Joneses, and you're going to have to keep her out of your boss's office. And you're going to have to do this. There's really no way around it. Okay, so let's talk about the second thing, Brifaults law. Now, Brifault was this anthropologist back in the 1800s. He was born in France, and he wrote a book about mammals. And one of the most famous things that he came up with was Brifaults law about mammals. And this affects all animals in the animal kingdom. And I'm going to read it to you. I'll read it twice so that you can get the gist of it. But you need to understand this. This is one of the most important fundamental laws in dealing with women. Okay? Here's Brifaults law. The female, not the male, determines all the conditions of the animal family. Where the female can derive no benefit from associating with the male, no such association takes place. I'm going to read that again. The female, not the male, determines all conditions of the animal family. Where the female can derive no benefit from association with the male, no such association takes place. That's the basic law. Now there are caveats to that law, and these you'll see expressed in a lot of women. First caveat, past benefit provided by the male does not provide for continued future association. Women don't care what you've done for them in the past. It's what have you done for me lately, just like the song. Past benefit provided by the male does not provide for continued or future association. They don't care what you did for them in the past. They don't have any loyalty. They don't need to have any loyalty. They're women. Okay? Second caveat. Any agreement where the male provides a current benefit in return for promise of future association is null and void as soon as the male has provided the benefit. How many guys have experienced this? Oh, we're going to go to that concert. We're going to hang out. And she says, well, did you get that ring for me that you said you were going to get for me for my birthday? Oh, yeah, here it is. And you give her the ring. She says, yeah, I can't go to the concert with you because I'm going with Joey. That's the second one. Any agreement where the male provides a current benefit in return for a promise of future association is null and void as soon as the male has provided a benefit. Okay? Then there's a third caveat. A promise of future benefit has limited influence on current future association with the influence inversely proportional to the length of the time until the benefit is given, and directly proportional to the degree with which the female trusts the male. So she's willing to keep giving you what you want or keep associating with you based on what she's experienced in the past. If she thinks you're going to keep paying her rent, she'll keep associating with you as long as she trusts you. But the minute that she doesn't trust you anymore, she will stop all association with you. Okay? That's Brifaults law in a nutshell. Now, what do we know about this? I mean, how can we see this in society? The first part, that they determine all conditions of the animal family. You can see that in the fact that men that have been married for a long time are slowly but surely edged out of the house. What do you think man caves are about? Man caves are about women exerting their complete dominance over the family, and they're subjugating men to garages, they're subjugating men to basements, they're subjugating men to their man caves. It's the only place in the house that they can have. The entire rest of the house is controlled by the female and her brood, her children, or whatever. You can see this. Every guy wants a man cave. And why does he want the man cave? It's not because he loves football that much. It's because he wants to get away from that bitch. He wants to get down to the basement and have some freaking peace and quiet, because he knows when he's in her space, she's going to be riding him. What else can you see? 80% of divorces are initiated by women. 80%. Don't you think it'd be 50-50? No, it can't be 50-50, because the woman controls the conditions of the family. When she doesn't derive any benefit anymore from a marriage or a family or the man being around, she cuts it off. The association is done. Young men, you need to understand this is hardwired into all women's brains. The other part of it, from a financial standpoint, everybody's heard the saying, what's hers is hers, and what's yours is ours. That's more of that controlling everything. They have to control everything. I call it the yoke. If you get into Brifaults law, you basically are an animal, a yak that's put that yoke on your shoulder, and you're trudging every day to pull that apple cart and bring that check home every 2 weeks and hand it over to her. And she sees that benefit, and you're a nice beta male, and you're going to keep providing for her. But you got to realize that once you're in that yoke, there's no days off, there's no vacation, there's no getting out of it, there's no I'm ready to retire, I don't want to do this anymore. No, if you do that, you're gone, because she's going to go find another pack animal to pull that apple cart for her, because she's definitely not going to do it. This also goes along bloodlines, and there's something that you have to understand about women, is that when you marry women, especially when you marry a woman, you're still not blood. She loves those kids more than you. She loves her daddy and her mommy and her grandparents more than you. They are all blood. Okay, they are all part of her bloodline, and evolution has taught her to keep that bloodline. Even though you're paying all the bills, you're paying the car payment, the house payment, all that stuff, and you're doing all the providing for her, the thing that you need to understand as a man in Brifaults law is you are not her bloodline. Her children, her offspring, are your bloodline, but you are not her bloodline. So she can cut you off at any time, because she finds another man and has more kids. Those are her bloodline still, but that guy isn't. So women, don't ever fall into the idea that your wife or your girlfriend loves you more than her kids, because she doesn't. Okay, that's a good thing to keep in mind. So hypergamy, Brifaults law. The big thing about hypergamy is it's women creating options and not taking responsibility. And the big thing about Brifaults law is that if she does contain any kind of option for you or responsibility, she has no obligation. If you can trick her into any little bit of responsibility, she has no obligation or no loyalty to keep that obligation. So that's the two things. Women look for options to monkey branch to the next guy, shun responsibility, but if they are in a situation where they have to take responsibility, they have no obligation to continue that. So those are the two things that you have to think about. Now, the other thing about Brifaults law is, if you don't believe that this is true, if you just say, oh, this guy's just talking out of his ass, this behavior can be observed anywhere in the world, in any social class, in every country in the world, over every time in history. Okay? This is a global law about female nature. It's observed in every country, all social classes, and it's been observed in women since the beginning of time. And it's going on right now. So it's a proof within itself. Okay, so let's talk about the third thing, solipsism. Solipsism is basically the way women think, and evolution has required them to kind of think this way, is that they are the center of the universe. The princess complex, or the queen, I'm the queen. You know, you've heard the saying, happy wife, happy life. That's a warning to you. That's a woman who's very solipsistic. My way or the highway. But it's more than just that queen mentality. It's the idea that they actually alter the truth. They can alter the idea of the truth to rationalize for themselves. And you know, to give you the idea, women hold an opportunistic concept of love, and men hold an idealistic concept of love. You know, everybody says that women are the ones that are romantic. Women aren't the ones that are romantic. All the poets in history, all the people that wrote romantic poems and all that idealistic stuff, they're all men. Women aren't the least bit idealistic about love. They're opportunistic about love. They like the way poems and romance feels to them because they're solipsists. It makes them feel like they're the center of the universe. And the way when you read poems and you treat women like queens and stuff like that, that's why they love it. But don't get any ideas that their type of love, idealistic love, is the kind of love that you feel. Because they don't. They're just opportunistic. They'll walk down the street, and if the next guy hands them a rose and a ring and starts reading poetry to them, they'll feel just as good about him. They might even feel better about him. They just like the attention. So they're the center of the universe. Now, what is this? What comes out of this? There's a lack of empathy. I'm not saying that women can't empathize, but they are removed from men's pain. They are removed from other people's pain. The only kind of pain that solipsistic, narcissistic women feel is when they feel pain themselves. When it hurts them, oh, that's pain. That's what pain is. Now I understand pain because it's happening to me. But they don't understand it when, you know, that's why women can be so cold and stuff when they break up with men. And a lot of men kill themselves during breakups and stuff like that because they have an idealistic view of love. Women don't. What does solipsism do for them? The first two things I told you about. One is creating options and not responsibilities. And then Brifaults law creates a system where they have no obligations to hold on to anything. Solipsism creates a situation that after the fact, they don't have to have any guilt or shame. Because, you know, it's your problem, it's not my problem. I'm a woman, I'm the queen, I don't have to have any kind of deal. Now, a good way to think about solipsism is that women are really good, or are terrible at reasoning, but they're really good at rationalization. And the example that I use for this is 2 + 2 = 4. Right? You can say to a solipsistic woman, 2 + 2 = 4. We all know that's math. That's a fact. And, you know, but she'll come back and she'll say, well, is it really? You know, if you put high heels on this 2 and you'd put a little makeup on this 2 and make it, you know, a 2.1, and round it up, that's 2.5, and this 2 over here, you know, put a push-up bra on that 2, and that makes it a 2.4. Round that up, that's 2.5. 2.5 and 2.5 is 5. So 2 plus 2 is really 5. And that's what they do. They rationalize. They take the truth and they cloud it. And a lot of, you know, 30 to 40% of women's behavior is about clouding, concealing, and deceiving the truth, what the truth is. And you can see it in the way they talk, the way they rationalize, the way they bring everything back to themselves. And you can see it in after they're grown. Women wear makeup, women wear wigs, women dye their hair, women wear push-up bras and high heels to make themselves look taller and more attractive. Men don't do any of that stuff. I mean, except for some of the 80s bands, you know, and stuff like that. But, you know, they're putting on a show. That's the point. Women are always putting on a show. They're always putting on a show. And they have to conceal the truth and deceive in order to get that done. You can see this very quickly in little kids between about the age of 5 and 9. And I've actually seen this myself. I read a book about this earlier in my life, and I had a little 7-year-old set of twins, exactly the same. The girl lived with me, and putting them to bed at night, the boy would always say why, and the girl would always say but I. Every sentence, you know, it's time to go to bed now, Jimmy. Why? Well, you know, it's your bedtime. But why is it my bedtime? Why aren't you going to bed? Why? And it's just why? He was seeking information. He was seeking the truth. He was seeking intent, trying to find out why he had to go to bed. But the little girl, Dora, everything that came out of her mouth, the first 2 words was but I. But I don't want to go to bed. You have to go to bed. But I want you to come and read a book with me. But I want to watch this show before I go to bed. But I. Everything, even at that very young age of 5 to 7 years old, was a manipulation to try to manipulate me. Not answering straightforward questions, but manipulate me into letting her stay up late. So, those are the 3 things. Hypergamy, which is basically marrying up, women creating options for themselves and not responsibilities. Brifaults law, which is allows them to just walk out on men, use men as whatever they need them for, disposable items, and create a system where they have no obligations. And then Solipsism allows them to not have any guilt or shame about what they do, no matter what it is that they do, because they are the queen. So all you young guys out there, and all you older guys that are sitting there nodding your heads and going, wow, yeah, I wish I would have known this when I was 20. Take this stuff into your head and remember it in dealing with women. Not just in relationships, at work, at the grocery store, dealing with the cashier. This stuff is hardwired into women's heads, and it's not going away anytime soon. So, as always, if you disagree with me, if you find points of contention that you want to talk about, feel free to do it. Put it down in the comment section down there. I'm more than happy to read them. And like I said, I like dissent. I like to find out what other people think about this stuff. This is just what I've experienced in my life. And as always, the rooster says, take it easy.